Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Mike, your physical therapist. Hey, today we're going to be talking about how to transition or how to migrate to another country with an amazing lawyer named Attorney Nick. We'll be back in a few seconds, okay?
HelloNote is a truly therapist-friendly practice management solution with integrated EMR that will enhance workflow, efficiency, and patient care. HelloNote reduces error and allows you to spend more time with your patients. It comes integrated with billing. Claims are generated once the note is completed. You can bill with one click and a patient portal, which streamlines the patient intake process. Beautifully engineered and cloud-based for easy accessibility, the software works on all platforms. You can access patient records from anywhere. We also offer 24/7 support. HelloNote is the practice management solution that you're looking for.
Hello, everyone. If you're watching live, comment live. If watching on the replay, comment replay. We normally go live later, but tonight we're going to be going live earlier because we got a special guest for tonight. And I don't want to be, I want to be accommodating because this guy is from New York. So if you are from New York, type in New York, right? Well, anyway, we got a special guest. His name is Attorney. He's an attorney. Is that how I pronounce attorney? Attorney Nick Caraquel. Is that how you pronounce it? Or Caraquel in the Philippines, right? And he's actually an immigration lawyer. And he mentioned to me that, of course, he grew up in the Philippines, transitioned here. So he really knows the struggle firsthand, not just being a lawyer, but also an immigrant moving from the Philippines to here. And he's got an amazing story back home where, this struggles from home. And now he's here in America and he's got his own private practice or whatever you call it, private practice as a in law. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in Attorney Nick. Correct. Well, Nick,
Yay.
how are you doing, sir? Well, thank you
Hello,
very much
Doc.
for coming.
Hello,
I
Doc.
appreciate you, man. So,
Doc. Thank you for inviting me in your show. Right. So I'm again Nick Caraquel. I am an immigration lawyer here, based in New York City, and thank you for inviting me. So then we are ready to talk about other options for the healthcare industry.
well, first of all, could you tell us your story? I mean, I've read your amazing story. It's been published in newspapers and in Facebook and all over, man. Could you please tell us that amazing story coming from Davao, Philippines, and all the struggles that you've been through?
Yeah. Okay. So I come from a family of 7 children, right? So my mom is a seamstress and my dad is a barber. Of course, you can just imagine how difficult life is. On my When I was in grade 3, my mom asked me to stop going to school because again, definitely the family cannot afford. And then I survived through college through scholarships and grants.
Wow.
I become an industrial engineer from Ateneo de Davao University way back years ago. And then even before I graduated, I was hired by San Miguel and then transitioned to Nestle Philippines. I came to the United States in 2007, right? So again, the transition it's in an understatement to actually say that high life is difficult going through college, right? So
Mm.
again, talk about not having eaten 3 days and so on, but we've overcome that. I became a lawyer in the Philippines in 2003, and then I worked hard to become a lawyer in the Philippines in 2004. And then I came in as a tourist in the United States in 2007. I was lucky to
Mhm.
be hired as an industrial engineer here in the US. And then I pursued my law career, took the New York bar exam in 2012, and happy to know that I passed, and then I practiced immigration law. I moved to New York in 2017. That's when I started my solo practice. And through the years, I've been helping teachers, families who actually would want to bring their family members to the United States, or even PTs or other healthcare industry applicants to come to the US through the immigration process. So that's my
Wow.
quick story of my journey to the US then.
Man, we got our own stories and everything, but yours is amazing. Your mom being a seamstress and a barber. I mean, here in the States, when you have a seamstress or whatever you call that business and a barber, it's going to pay you well. But back home
Correct.
in the Philippines, oh gosh, good luck getting paid $1 or two. I mean, I remember having a haircut for $1. That's like,
Correct.
how much is that?
Yes.
20, 30
Uh,
pesos. That's not enough. So
mhm.
it is going to be a difficult, uh, uh, what you call this, a process, growing up, and you really endured it. So thank you for pushing through, Attorney Nick, and believing in yourself too. And thank you for your parents for believing in you and supporting you. So I'm just fortunate my parents supported me well. Anyway, let's go back to you. Let's go back to the actual uh, topic, and how do we transition? So for example, I'm from the Philippines and I want to work as a nurse, or in this case, physical therapy, or physical therapist. What's the process? I mean, the basic general process, sir.
Okay, so basically, again, I can talk about my own journey as well, right? So whether it's coming from the healthcare industry or engineering or any other industry, it starts with our qualifications back home, right? So I'm an engineer. If I would want to work as an engineer here, first you need to know if your foreign credentials, academic credentials, is actually equivalent to the United States, right? So lucky for me, when I was actually transitioning to work as an industrial in the United States, there are no licensing requirements for me. So when I actually found an employer, they actually just look into my experience and offer me the job. And then I process my visa. But then it's quite different for the physical therapist, right? Because it's the rules is quite stringent. So just like what I said, you start with your experience back in the Philippines, your academic background, and then you go through the credentialing process for you to determine whether or not your educational background is equivalent to the United States. That is just the first step, though. When I become a lawyer, I still have to be credentialed and get some documentation from the Supreme Court, submit it to the proper agency here, just like with the PTs, right? So you go through the credentialing bodies. Once you actually get given the certification, then you go to take your NPTA exam, just like me going through the New York bar exam. And then once you pass that, then you go through the state licensing process. And it's not enough, right? So it doesn't mean that you have a license, then you can work. You have to find that US employer. In my case, I tried to apply for a number of law offices. Unfortunately, I was not hired. So I said at the time, "Oh, you're not going to hire me. I'll come up. I'll create my own company then." And that was in 2012. I think it was a blessing in disguise. And I always say that if there are no opportunities open for you, then create one. And that's what
Mm,
I did. Right? I've been in
love
practice
that.
for about quite a number of years now. Right? So as a PT, there's a lot of rules that has been changed, right? Before, you could basically just once you have the license, you can apply for employment. But now you could also be on your own, right? You can put up your own clinic and practice on your own. So I think there's analogy between wanting to become a PT in the US, either as an employee or an employer. The same manner like a lawyer can be an employee or an employer if they want to go to that route.
Amazing, amazing. I like what you said about, if nobody hires you, go ahead and start hiring people. So when one door closes and that door doesn't close, create a window yourself, right? So that's what we've
Correct.
been
Yeah.
doing. And a lot of people, especially in the United States, they forget how blessed they are. They don't have to go through all this immigration process, paying lawyer fees,
Mhm.
proving that your education is actually equivalent to the cr- to the schooling that the United States is asking. That's why I have to go back and finish my doctorate here because of that same issue. So, attorney, I- next is, now that, let's just say I have a possible employer. Can I
Mhm.
just do it on my own, or does the employer has to start the process?
So on employment-based categories, though, generally speaking, you need an employer to sponsor your visa, right? So again, there are other visa types where a person can self-petition, like just the national interest waivers, but I think that is not so appropriate for the PTs in general. So the general path for a foreign educated PT is basically to go through the licensing process, and then once they have that, they need an employer to file the petition for them. And there are two types of visas that's commonly used for PTs. It's either the H-1B or the immigrant visa. And I think we can talk more about the details of that in a
Mhm.
few minutes, right? I think I can share this to my own.
Yeah, yeah. So again, if you're watching live, comment live, watching on a replay, comment replay. If you got any questions for Attorney Nick, we got him for around 30, 45 minutes. So make the most out of it, and he can probably reply when you got any questions. So, Attorney, when we, so let's just say I already have my, do I need to have my local board exam back home in the Philippines
Mm-hmm.
before I could take a board exam here in the United States? How does that work? Is there a certain requirement you mentioned about the uh credentialing? Is there like a credentialing body that we have to go to? FSBPT, FCCPT? I know those are letters that are so confusing. When I was trying to move here, I'm pretty new here also in the United States, uh and I had a problem, with my educational levels. So I think he's back. I have a problem with the number of units. So do we have to go through that process, the FCCPT, the FSBPT? I mean, who does that? The employee or the employer?
Okay, so the credentialing process technically starts with the potential employee, right? So there's three at least credentialing bodies for the PT group, right? The FCCPT, CJFNS, or IIRF, but the most common ones uses the FCCPT or the CJFNS. So on your own, you have to go through, submit some documentation, in particular your transcript of record, and of course, your school needs to be accredited with FCCPT, correct? Now, once they are in the process of credentialing, they would let you know if there are deficiencies that you need to complete before going through the next step. That's basically going through the MPTE exam and so on and so forth. But because the rule changed way back in, I think in 2012, that you have to go through a DPT program before you can work as a PT in the United States. What used to be if you are already a registered PT in the Philippines and it's a lot easier for you to transition, becomes now a little more difficult to practice PT in the US because again, you have to earn 9 units, 10 units, or 30 units depending on what school you completed your PT. But the only agency that could actually let you know what your deficiency is going through the credentialing process, right? And again, the three agencies that could go through that is FCCPT or CGFNS or IRTF. It really depends on the state actually tells you what agencies they would allow, right? So example for New York, you can either go through the FCCPT, CGFNS, but other states, depending on where you would want to work in, also defines which agencies are allowed to do the credentialing. But for the common part, the most popular one is through the FCCPT.
Wow, too much letters for me, Attorney.
Right.
So,
Okay.
well, anyway, FCCPT, for those people who don't are listening or watching, it's called the foreign. What's it called? This foreign credentialing body, whatever, for physical therapy. Let me go
Correct.
look that up, Attorney. FCCPT.
Right.
All right, it's called the Foreign Credentialing Commission on Physical Therapy. So basically, you submit your paperwork, your school credentials, your transcript of records. Actually, not you. It has to be the school who has to send it to
Mhm.
FCCPT. It has to be sealed by your school, and that's how I remember this. Because I
Yeah.
graduated 1999 in PT school, and then I remember working on this around 2002, 2003, and it has to be sealed by the school, and the school has to be the one who's supposed to mail to FCCPT. Because is that still happening right now?
Correct. So again, let me clarify what I actually said, right? So it's the potential employee who needs to start the process, right? And again, the number one requirement of the credentialing process is the school that you graduated from should be CAPTI approved school, right? That's why to start this process, they are asking you, oh, where did you graduate from? And to
Mhm.
your point, once you start this process, then the credentialing agency and the school has to communicate. I think the purpose of that is to protect the integrity of the documentation because we know people are becoming creative on creating some documents, right? So to protect that process, they have to coordinate directly with the credentialing agencies. And
Mhm.
again, they will communicate to the applicant if there are deficiencies that needs to be completed before they go through the next step.
Wow. Yeah, that's very true. That's like what you said, to protect the integrity of the credentialing process. Knowing knowing stuff back home, right? So after that, attorney, after that, the credentialing agency, FCCPT or CGFNS or the other letter that you mentioned, they send it back to you, right? They send it back to the
Yeah.
employee, and the employee gets that certificate that your education is equivalent to the US standard. Then can I
Mhm.
take the exam? Is that the
So
process?
again, so once they are actually being credentialed, right? So then there are states that requires the jurisdiction exam, right? New York, for example, is one of them. But let's just assume that the state that you're applying for does not require the jurisdiction. Then you are actually given the certificate, which will be needed for you to register and schedule your NPTE exam. Okay. So, but before you could actually take the exam, because only for PTs, unlike the nurses, they only need to take the exam in the United States, right? Or at least
Mhm.
in some territories, right? It's just like Guam and so on. So, once you are credentialed, you were issued the certification that you are allowed, or your academic background is equivalent to the US equivalency, then you are applying for the authorization to take, and then that's part of the requirement for your NPTE process, right? So
Or
once you are given the
the
authorization to
ATT,
take,
right?
correct? Once you are given the authorization to take, you have to select the schedule and the place where you wanna take the exam then. Okay,
Mhm.
and hope and wish you that you will pass the NPT exam. I heard it's very difficult. Through the statistics, I think it's only 50% passing rate for NPTE. I was surprised though that there are now a number of NPT review centers in the Philippines, and I think
Yeah.
that's a big help for PT aspirants working to the United States because, again, costs. You can just imagine if you are in the United States and you are reviewing and taking the NPT exam, and it could be a lot of money needs to to spend just to be here and prepare for the exam. At least before you go to the US and take your exam, you already have spent a lot of time back in the Philippines because there's a lot of review centers there. And you just come here ready to take on and jump into the exam room and hope and pray that you will pass. No? So that's a very
True.
big help having those review centers in the Philippines.
You know what? Yeah, there are several review centers out there, and they're very good. They also guide you and teach you and mentor you how to do this. They don't make money out of it, but they'll guide you towards the end of the review. They're going to guide you. Hey, this is how where you're going to go to. This is the website and stuff like that. And without those review centers, it's going to be difficult too. So after, let's just say you mentioned the ATT, the authorities,
Questions to take.
whatever authority to take. I'm running out of English, attorney. It's way past my English time. Okay, so
There's, I think,
authority to take.
correct.
So you've already taken the board exam, right? And then let's just say fingers crossed you passed it. I know you mentioned it's very hard, right? Um,
Mhm.
let's just say you passed it. I failed my exam the first time I took it. So let's just say you passed it. Do I need to go home to the Philippines because I'm already here, right?
Correct.
Do I need to go home or I can stay or how does that work?
Okay, so generally speaking, when you actually are allowed to take the exam, right, you have to go through the embassy interview. It's like applying for the tourist visa, right? But with a specific intention of coming to the US to take the exam. So generally, you are actually given 6 months, but for some applicants, they are given specific dates as to where, up to when they would stay in the United States. But again, that's a discussion on the officers at the embassy on how long the validity of your visa would be. Or even if you're given a longer period of time, it depends on the officer at port of entry whether you'll be given the 6 months or 3 months or shorter than that, depending on the interaction you have with the officer. So once you're already here, of course, your primary intention is to take the exam. And this process is also applicable to nurses and all that, right? But it's also there is such thing as extending your visa for whatever purpose you have. So let's say you are so stressed taking the exam, you just want to have extra days or extra months to stay in the United States, right? Because you would want to see this beautiful country. Then you have the option of extending your visa, or if you would want to change your status, let's say for a student visa, because trust me, we may be speaking English, back in the Philippines, but when you are in the United States, they might have difficulty understanding what you said. My first assignment in the United States is in Kentucky, and my first difficulty in the first 3 months is why are the people cannot understand me when I'm speaking in English? In this manner, I cannot understand them, right? So some people would actually enroll or change status to student visa and take English as a secondary language, and people would actually raise eyebrows to say, "Hey, you're already speaking English. Why are you? Why do you have to go through enrolling English as a secondary language?" Trust me, it helps, right? It's the tonation, that it's the tone. I mean, it's the accent, it's the words that we use that actually affects people's ability to understand us. Correct.
That's true.
So again, you could change status, you could extend your visa type while waiting for your opportunity to be hired by a U.S. employer. Correct. So then, if you get lucky that you are lawfully present in the United States and you've had gone through all the NPT exam, you have had the state license, and let's just say you are here on the first quarter of the year, and you find an employer willing to hire you as a PT, then you can go through the H-1B process that normally happens in March. And normally the results of the lottery comes out in April. So again, just to answer the question initially of what they can actually do once they are here and they already have taken the exam.
Yeah. Well, you're trying to, I went through all this process, attorney, and sakit sa bangs. It's
Correct.
really, it's that's the term in the Philippines. Sakit sa bangs means it's such a headache. There's so
Mhm.
much process that you have to go through. And of course, yeah, he mentioned about talking about, learning English as your second language. Yes, we know how to speak Philippines English back home, but it's still different when you're conversing with your patients here. And
Correct.
I think I need to go back learning English too. And sometimes my patient, they laugh at me like, "Oh, I really don't understand you, Dr. Mike." I'm like, "Okay, let me just rephrase it." And then I do have like several assistants and front desk people. They're like, "Oh, this is what he meant," so something like that. So
Mhm.
especially I'm here in Tennessee, so
Correct.
I think we got therapists that we're trying to recruit here, right? So they need to learn Southern language and twang, right? So attorney, so after that, so you already talked about maybe transitioning their visa from tourist or going to a student visa. What if I decide to go home and then have a what you call this a work visa under me, and then when I found an employer, how long should I wait, and how does the lottery work? I mean, is what is the lottery, by the way? Mhm.
Okay. So yeah, very good question though. So again, for people who has the financial ability and capability to support themselves, they might tend to stay here then while waiting for that opportunity, right? The employment opportunity. But for people who actually had limited sources of finances while they are taking the exam, they can go home and then just wait for any opportunity, because again, applying for a PT can be done online, right? I mean, it actually changed the world now of you can just go through the interview virtually and so on and so forth. So let's just assume that you find an employer. So the first step that you can actually have is basically the H-1B. That's first option that you could take, taking that chance to be able to work as a PT, assuming that again you have the license already, right? It's not a requirement for you to have a state license to be able to be entered into a lottery. Again, there's a very limited number of H-1B visas in a year. Then, because the number of entries are higher than, I think it's about 66,000 per H-1B for every year. I forgot the numbers because there's so many numbers of visas. Then there's more entries to that. So they do the lottery. So lottery, as it implies, it's really is taking your chance to be picked about from all these thousands of applicants, and it's not only for the PT, it's actually being shared for all the professions. So
Really?
H-1B's minimum requirement is for you to have a bachelor's degree. So let's say
Wow.
I have to just have a meeting with an employer looking for caregivers, right? And the first question they have is, "Hey, can a caregiver be part of the lottery?" And we said no, because an H-1B requires at least a bachelor's degree. So again, a bachelor's degree doesn't mean a bachelor's degree for the physical therapist, right? It doesn't mean a bachelor's degree from your bachelor's back home. That's why you need to have the credentialing process to say academic credentials is equivalent to a bachelor's degree at least in the United States to be part or to be eligible for H-1B. So as we know, most of the states now require a master's degree to become a licensed PT in the United States. Again, that's why we need to go through the credentialing process, correct? So there are two types to enter into the H-1B lottery. If you go through the bachelor's degree, again, there's a lot of applicants in the pool. But if you have an advanced degree, there's only about 20,000 visas available. But since not everybody has an advanced degree, then you have a better chance of being picked there. Question now is, would a PT who had actually earned their bachelor's 5 years degree in the Philippines qualify for that? And even if it actually comes out in the credentialing assessment that your education is equivalent to a master's degree, then you may not qualify for the advanced degree H-1B lottery. Because the other requirement is that if you want to enter into the advanced degree category on the H-1B, the advanced degree or the master's degree must have been taken from a university in the United States. Okay? Now, the good thing is there are other now universities in the Philippines who have affiliation agreement with University of Montana, for example, right? So it could still be considered as obtaining the master's degree in the United States because you have a diploma and a transcript from a university based in the United States. But what I'm trying to say is for you to qualify on the advanced degree H-1B lottery, your master's degree must have been earned in a university based in the United States. But basically, that's the process of the H-1B, right? They normally open the lottery second, third week of the month in March. You have a very limited period of time wherein you have to register, and the employer needs to register you. It's not the applicant that will register themselves. And then after the lottery closes, this time, it was actually last Friday, and then the results came out yesterday, right? And again, the chance of being paid is very slim. And maybe we can transition towards what happens next then if you are not selected in the lottery, right? So going back to the H-1B process, once you have the lottery, you've been selected in the lottery, then you have up to June 30 to file the H-1B. This is a very critical period because between the lottery and the deadline to file the H-1B, it's only about 3 months. So if you haven't had passed your NPTE yet, then there's the additional pressure for you to finish and to pass your NPTE exam. And even after you pass the NPTE exam, you still have to go through the state licensing process. But even if you don't have a state license as of the time that we're gonna file your H-1B on June 30, that's the due date to file H-1B cases that has been selected in the March lottery, you could still be approved of an H-1B, but then it will be valid only for 1 year. So you have ample time to get that state license. But in the employer's perspective, it doesn't give them financial benefit. Number one, H-1B is expensive. So if they would want to hire you on an H-1B, they want you to get the 3 years initial H-1B. But it can only be issued if you have a state license already whose validity is at least 3 years. Am I able to explain that clearly, Doc?
Yeah, I'm following.
Right? So that's the H-1B process. And H-1B can be filed in two types. You can go to the normal processing time, which could take 6 months to 9 months. Of course, your employer doesn't like that. Or you could actually file on premium process. But there's an extra fee that you need to pay so that your application can be approved in 15 days. Then once it's approved, then you have to go through, if you're outside the United States, then you have to go through the embassy interview. Or if you are in the United States, you can just change status from whatever non-immigrant visa you have, whether tourist or student, to an H-1B. So balik tayo dun sa sinabi natin kanina, Doc, na what happens if I'm already here and I don't want to go back and I'm already having a student visa? Can I just easily transition to H-1B? And the answer is yes, right? So whether you are in the United States or outside the US, your first day of employment through the H-1B process is October 1st. If you are outside the United States, you can come in 10 days earlier than October 1st, but your first day of work is basically October 1. if you get your H-1B through the lottery. So just for context or clarification, when you talk about a work visa for PT, you're talking about the H-1B. If you're talking about the immigrant equals green card, we are looking at the EB2,
Mhm.
right? So EB means employment base. Then the things you hear about EB2, EB3 is just basically the preference categories, right? EB2 is for advanced degree holders. EB3 are those with a bachelor's degree.
How about the
Right?
EB1, special child?
EB1. EB1 yung medyo mataas na category na yan. So, I think, have I clarified with the H1B process? Because we only talk about the H1B.
Yep, yep,
Okay.
yep. So it's a long
So, if
process, and just by listening to you, attorney, it's like I'm stressed out already. And I
correct.
remember I went through this process, and I remember I waited back home. I did took the board exam. I took it around '06, and I failed. I only had a 3-day visit visa. 3 days. I came in, I took the exam, and I flew back. They didn't even give
Mhm.
me, I didn't even get to explore Hawaii. I went to
Correct.
Hawaii that time. And then '09, they gave me 6 months. So I was able to kind of observe my friend. Hey, what are you doing? What kind of therapy is this? Blah, blah. So, and then I passed. And after that 6 months of, staying here, not really 6 months, but, before the 6 month period, I went home and still waited to get approved for my work visa. And that was such a stressful time for me. I already had 3 kids, and I didn't have a job back home, so it was very stressful. But anyway, so I've been seeing the cap and then non-cap. What does that mean, attorney?
Okay. So, the cap exempt, generally speaking, if you are going to work for as a PT in the United States, your the most likelihood of finding an employer is through a private employment, correct? So
Mhm.
if you are working for a private employer, you have to be to go through the cap exempt. So the cap, the H1B cap. Again, there's about 65,000, 66,000 visa H1B every year. And then, so hahatiin yon, pag kunwari nga, more than 66,000 na yung nabunot, then wala nang pwedeng bunutin. That's what means cap, right? But there
Mhm.
are type of employers also who are cap exempt. So let's say if you are actually working for an institution who are affiliated with a higher education. So let's say you have a nonprofit company who's actually going to the research on physical therapy and they have this agreement with a university, then they are cap exempt, meaning they don't have to wait for March, they don't have to wait
Wow.
for the lottery, they can hire PTs as any time of the year because it's needed in their operations. So that's
Yeah.
what we said cap exempt.
Well, we need
Okay.
that. We need them more in
Right.
private practice versus in the school system, right? So,
Correct. Right.
mhm,
But to be honest, Doc, the immigration process in general is not really for the foreign potential workers, right? So
mhm,
immigration in general is actually to protect the U.S. citizens and the green card holders, correct?
mhm.
Because if you can just open the gate and bring in all the foreigners, then you might not have enough work for your US citizens, right?
That's true.
So that's why they actually limit these visa numbers. That's why there is what we call the caps. Now, so to actually give opportunity for US citizens or green card holders to be able to work here.
Is that
Okay,
also the reason why there's this the one that you told me last time, the where we post that job posting on our
correct.
clinic? What do you
The
call that
notice,
again?
the notice of
Yeah,
filing. So
notice of filing,
notice,
so
the
people
notice
could
of
apply.
filing.
Mhm.
Yeah, the notice of filing is actually required to inform your employees that you are hiring foreigners because you needed more PTs. Now, so again, that is to protect the US citizen or the green card holders available and willing to do the job. So, hey, before you can hire foreigners, you have to offer it the opportunity first to us. Okay. And if there are no applicants, then you can hire foreign workers.
There you go. See, at least
Yeah,
they cannot say, "Hey, we're stealing their jobs." Hey, we're posting it
correct.
here in our workplace, and everywhere because it's your opportunity to apply for this job. So, Attorney Nick, so I know you're a very busy person. It's
Now, can I just
Eastern time
interrupt you,
here.
Doc?
I'm sorry.
May limit ba yung show mo?
We have people watching, and then some bit. I already shared it also in the Filipino group.
Pero may limit ba yung show mo? Sorry.
No, we don't have any limit. We could talk the whole day. Well,
Gusto ko lang balikan yung binanggit mo kanina because I think it's very
go ahead.
important to share yung perspective, right? Again, pareho tayong we go through this process, right? And as an applicant, one day waiting of the next step feels like a year, right?
Mm.
So just like what you said, you've been so stressed preparing for the board exam or the MPT exam. In my case, it's the bar exam, right? And then luckily you pass and you become licensed PT, you get your state license and all that. And then you find an employer, and then after that, you wait. So let's talk about the H1B perspective first, right? So you get through the lottery system. You have to wait until the end of March for them to do the lottery. And then the following week, you are hoping that you will receive that email to say, hey, congratulations, you were selected to the H1B lottery. If you haven't received your selection notification as of now, then chances are you were not selected. The good news is there's still another selection process comes June. So there is still an opportunity that those who have been through the system might be selected in June. Okay?
Mm.
But alam mo yun, yung perspective ng applicant, you feel like I've done all this work and still I have to wait and there is no guarantee that I will be selected. It is the same actually feeling that the employer has. And just like what you said, one of the reasons why employers doesn't like immigration processes is the paperwork. Correct? Alam mo
Mm.
yun, having to understand this process and it becomes complicated and with all the forms that I have to do this and I have to do that, right? That's why when
And of course,
people come to our
we're
office,
paying already, right? We're paying
correct.
already, and then I mean, just for the people who know, so we're trying to get PTs back home, and we kind of paid for the people, and then only got one selected. I only said only, but I feel blessed because out of the 65,000, I got one out of it. I got one.
Correct. Yes.
We requested three, right, attorney? We
Mm-hmm.
submitted three applicants to get, but we got one out of the 65,000. And of course, how
Correct.
many people applied? 400,000.
Yeah. So again,
Ah,
that's why they need the lottery because the demand the supply is more than the demand, right? So you
mhm.
have the cap, right? So then again, yung perspective nga ng employer, doc, is I have paid already, but again, there's no guarantee for me to be selected. I'm happy to get one, and it's not the fault of the lawyer nor the fault of the employer. You are just lucky that you get one, right? And be part of that pool of blessed H1B lottery means chosen to be selected in that lottery, right? And then after you've been selected, you have to go through again the process, wait for the process to be approved. And once they are approved, you cannot even have your PT right away. You still have to wait for October 1st,
Yeah.
correct? So the same feeling that the applicant says, hey, I've been waiting already. Why do I have to wait for October? It's the same feeling times three on the perspective of the employer. They already spent a lot and they cannot have the PT that they needed in their operation because they have to wait for October 1st, right? And not to mention all the paperwork and so on. So that's why in employment-based inquiries in our office, we normally start the conversation with the employer and not with the employee, right? Because there's a lot of work that the employer needs to do before we can even go to the process of you having to interview at the embassy. Okay? So one last ano na lang, Doc, so we can transition to the immigrant visa, is the next strategy on what happens then if I will not be selected to the H1B lottery. So the good news is if your employer is willing to file the immigrant petition for you. So again, babalik kita, EB2 is equal to immigrant is equal to the green card. Then there is no lottery for the green card process, but it will just take time. The good news about PT is they are part of Schedule A, meaning walang advertisement, walang extra work, and so on. So the prevailing wage, which is the first part of the step for the immigrant visa, is the prevailing wage determination by the Department of Labor. So normally it takes about 8 months, 9 months to get that prevailing wage, the purpose of which is to tell the employer how much you will be paying your potential PT. Once you have that, you do the notice of filing, again, just like what you said, Doc, to inform your US citizen employees or green card holders that you are hiring foreign PTs. You post that in 10 business days, and then you have the 30-day silent period, right? Again, to give opportunity for the US citizen or green card holders to apply. And if you still need employees, then you file the H-1B, the immigrant petition for you. If you do the premium processing, it can be approved in 15 days. Once it's approved, it goes through the National Visa Center, takes 3 to 4 months, and then you have your interview. Absent the retrogression, the whole process could take about 1.5 years. You are already a green card holder in the United States if there is no retrogression. So, good news for master's degree holders or the DPT. They can be green card permanent residents working as a PT in the United States in about 1 month, 1.5 years, right? If you don't get lucky to be selected in the H-1B lottery.
Wow. Kind of stressed out already just by listening to that, attorney. I went through that process too, but it's good that you got your green card in a year and a half. I mean, it took me almost 10 years to get it, So,
Mhm.
and then I like what attorney Nick was talking about, ladies and gentlemen. He was talking about the stress, not just for the employee, but also for the employer, because like what he said, the employer, I mean, not unless you're a big company, but the big company, they also need to make money, right? So
Correct.
I'm a small private practice, and then we're paying out of pocket on this. And I know it's an investment, it's a big risk too. And then you don't know, it's literally a lottery if you're going to get picked or not. So at least I got one out of the three that we submitted, for that. So we are very blessed. Thank you, attorney, for working on that. So part of it too, for the immigrants out there, the Filipinos specifically, uh think of it like this, you know like what attorney was talking about, US, the United States, is protecting uh the citizen and the green card holders here. So you really have to go above and beyond. If you're an immigrant right now, you're from the Philippines. I know we kind of shared this in the Filipino group. If you're an immigrant, if you're a Filipino or any kind of immigrant, you got to have that immigrant mentality. The why would the company hire me? Your skills, you got to go above and beyond. You just can't be this generalist. You have to have that special skills. You have to have that niche going here, because the employer could just say, hey, why would I spend all this money where I can hire a new grad here? Speaking of that, I have like 3 doctoral students that comes from University of St. Augustine. We got contracts from other schools too, and why would I hire someone back home when I could just hire a new grad here? Well, of
Mhm.
course, the key here is you going above and beyond. I'm not saying operate out of your scope of practice, but going above and beyond. The goal here is not just to satisfy your customer and your customer is your employer and your patients. The goal here is not just to satisfy them. The goal here is to amaze them so much that they're like, okay, I want to get this therapist back home, something like that. Just like what Nick is doing, he's just amazing people now. So, attorney, so uh, after the green card process, you got approved.
Yeah.
What's next?
So again, you become a green card holder, right? You come in 1 month later. So let's say you are coming from outside the US, right? So you go to the interview, you got your immigrant visa, you pay your green card online. 1 month later, you receive your green card on the mail. You will receive your social security number as well. Then once you have the both, you can start working for your employee. And again, I agree with you, Doc, when we actually said, if you would want to be hired as a PT, you're not hired to be trained here, right? That's why most employers require X number of years experience, because they expect you to be on your first day to be on the go, right? Your employer's responsibility is to train on how the way that company works, right? And maybe talk about your benefits and all that. But as far as the professional and technicalities of you doing your job, you are already expected to do your job on the go on the first day. So
Yep.
we've been hiring teachers to support the school districts, and we have a school district. They are a big one in California. They were actually told that Upon your arrival on the first day, the following day, you are expected to work. And you are not expected to be trained. You are expected to work as teachers right away. And that applies to everybody though, right? Whether you're a lawyer, you're an engineer. When I was hired as an engineer, they didn't expect me to be, hey, we're gonna train you for 1 month and so on and so forth, right? You're there to solve the problems of the factory. And that holds
That's
true
right.
with the PTs. Okay?
It's
I
funny
think
you
maganda yun,
mentioned
Doc.
this, attorney,
Maganda yun na
because
mentality pa lang.
yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because in the Philippines, you got this 60, 90-day uh period of
Provisional
training. I
period.
forgot what called this, temporary,
Provisional.
probationary. Here, when you start your first day, obviously will teach you how to use the electronic medical record, the EMRs, who's this person, who's this, lady at the front desk. But like what attorney said, you're expected to do an entry level job, which you have a doctorate. You're supposed to have a doctorate anyway, to do your job and do this. Because if you're here, it's like, oh, what am I gonna do now? That's gonna be hard, and that's why I said you gotta learn there already when you're outside, when you're when you're there in the Philippines, watch videos already, CEUs, continuing education units, and stuff like that. So I'm sorry for interrupting you, attorney.
I don't know. You're actually
I'm sorry,
doing
Your Honor.
actually saying the right things, Doc. And in addition to that, kasi may nabuno tayo, Doc, no? And we actually have one also going through the immigrant visa process. As early as now, I would really want you to go through, okay, pagdating ko ba sa US, paano bang mag-apply ng driver's license? Or
Mhm.
paano ba mag-open ng bank accounts? Saan ba ako titira? Well, some employers, you are lucky that will be assisting you. And I think the word is assisting you. At the end of the day, no one will apply for the driver's license for you. Ikaw yun, right? So, I think gusto nating sabihin na the United States is not really a place for you will be assisted by. You really have to come to the US in a mindset na you have to help your own. No? Kasi yung expectation kasi, boss, kagaya sa atin, right? You are up when, kunwari ako, I'm from Davao City, but I was hired in Cagayan de Oro. And of course, my employer is so nice and so accommodating na ilagay ka talaga sa tamang lugar, i-apply ka ng ano mo, yung maybe rent a car and so on and so forth. But in the US though, you have to be self-sufficient, correct? And before coming to your employer with YouTube now, with other social media platform, try to understand the place of work so that hindi ka ma-shock, no? Because I was shocked when I came to Kentucky, right? Because when we actually think about America, we think about New York, California, or Chicago, and so on. But of course, I was assigned in Kentucky. It was a beautiful place, but it is just not the place that you were expecting about America. And I came in on a fall season. So patay na yung mga puno, medyo sad yung story, right? But of course, the people are very accommodating and they're very nice and so on. But you don't appreciate those in your first 3 months. What you feel is the loneliness and, hey, Lord, why am I here? Correct? And if you don't have that, if you're not prepared mentally, emotionally, psychologically, that you are coming in a new place, no friends, right? And you are on your own, then it will be difficult for you to adjust. So it's really very important that you have to prepare yourself with all these things before you even come to the United States.
That's so true. That's so true. Like what you said, you got to be self-sufficient. I did that too. I felt like what they called it in the Philippines, we call it basang sisiu. I felt like a basang sisiu when I first came in here because back home I used to work as a pharmaceutical rep and we were taken care of. I worked for United Laboratories and they took care of us. They gave us car, they gave us free hotels, free food and everything. And then they came
Mhm.
here to the United States. I was like, who's gonna take care of me here? Nobody. Nobody took I mean, of course, I had like a Filipino friend that really helped me out, but he took me to the driver's license center, and then nobody will help you when you come here. But on that note, rest assured, if you work with me, I will help you. I'll guide you because I know your struggles anyway. So, uh, with that being said, attorney, what will be our next step? For example, we got the green card. You come in here, uh, we got we need to apply for social security, a driver's license, and plug and play work for that company. uh what will be the next step? I mean, what I mean is that the work visa, how do we renew that? Do we renew that every, you mentioned 3 years, every 3 years? And then for the
Yeah.
green card, if we already got it, when does that expire, or does that expire?
Okay, very good. So very quick because we're almost, can you imagine, Doc, 10 minutes na lang, 1 hour na yung live natin, right?
I know,
So
right?
basically, you are on an H-1B. So again, get that state license. So to be fair with your employer also, they can maximize the initial 3 years H-1B, right? Kasi kung wala kang state license for whatever reason, your H-1B will still be approved, but it will only be valid for 1 year. But then you have to refile the extension. So let's just assume na meron kang state license, then you will have an initial H-1B for 3 years. And at least 2 months before that 3 years expire, you have to renew for another 3 years. So H-1B has a maximum of 6 years. But in most cases, though, because the H-1B process is expensive, kung pumasa naman ang performance ng PT mo, you might transition them to become a green card holder 1 year after they arrive on H-1B. Or sa case mo, dahil nga meron ka nang nasimulan na immigrant visa for one person, even yung H-1B papasok siya in October, once the I-140 is ready to be filed, kahit na yung person na pumasok on H-1B, pwede na rin siyang sumakay doon sa green card application. Okay? So again, H-1B initial validity is 3 years. It needs to be renewed, maximum of 6 years if your employer doesn't want to go through the green card process right away. And it's their discretion, right? You can demand it. You can talk to your employer to transition you to the green card. But again, it depends on their policy. It depends on their discretion. On the other hand, the immigrant visa, once they arrive here, it's valid for 10 years. Now, the good thing is, on a green card visa process, you will become eligible for citizenship 5 years from the time you get your green card. As a matter of fact, you can file it 3 months before your 5th year anniversary. So then, citizen ka na, no? So after being a resident for 5 years.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. So you need to help me when getting my citizenship, attorney. So I don't have my green card. We have our green card. Yeah, by the way, I'm legal here. Okay, so we do have our green card, but we're not on the 5th year yet. So we will have to apply for that someday or soon. So, attorney, I know you're very busy. Any last parting wisdom for our people who are watching? You know, the guidance in there. Oh, before that, do you have a company that can help us out there back home in the Philippines? Could you talk
Yeah.
about, iDream and everything?
Yes. Okay. So I own two companies, right? So number one, I am the owner slash managing lawyer in my law office here in New York. So it's the Nicholas Caracal, the law offices of Nicholas Caracal. We are based here in Elmhurst, New York. And then we also have a staffing agency called the iDream America. So we are actually helping physical therapists find employers in the United States. So we are not an agency. So meaning if you're gonna go through our process, you're not considered our employees. So our contacts are direct employers who are now ready to hire PTs or occupational therapists or speech pathologists. So we could actually help you navigate through the licensing process, and we can also find an employer for you. So again, Doc Mike here is one of our clients. We're actually hiring PTs as of the moment, right? So again, if you need assistance on your processing for licensing, let us know. You can contact us through the iDream America Facebook account or iDream America Staffing Agency page. So again, thank you, Doc, for having me. If you have further questions, you can go through the comment section and I'll try to review. And if I can answer, I'm gonna answer your questions there.
Perfect. Thank you again, attorney. I know you already mentioned iDream. Any last parting wisdom for people who are watching? Maybe someday we can talk about more on the other topics, but any last parting wisdom, encouragement
Right.
for our fellow countrymen?
Yeah, for the physical therapists in particular, right? So we know that your licensing pathway is a little bit more, is actually stricter than other professions. Especially the scheduling of the NPTE and so on and so forth. So I think your best route is to go through the H-1B process. For as long as your employer is willing to take that route, to take the chance, then prepare for the H-1B 2020-2025. And the only way for you to be able to go to that process is at least complete your credentialing process before October this year. Because once your credentials, you still have time to schedule for your NPTE and to take the exam and take your state license, right? Because again, there's very strong, very clear yung cut-off dates for the PT process, right? You have to be credentials as of October. You have to be selected by March. You have to file your H-1B by June. You have to start working by October. So very strict yung timelines on working as a PT on the H-1B. On the green card side, you really have to complete your credentialing. If your employer, who doesn't know you personally, is willing to take the risk of bringing you as a permanent resident, right? Just assure them that once you arrive here as a permanent resident, that you are giving your best, just like what Dr. Mike said, give your best beyond what is expected of you, because they also have invested in you and believe in you that you are the PT that they are looking for. So I think it's a win-win both for the potential employee and the employer, giving you the opportunity to work as a PT in the United States. So for that, good luck, everybody, and hope to see you in the United States as a physical therapist or occupational therapist, right? Working all over the United States.
All right. Again, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, attorney. Appreciate you for your time and everything, and so of course for assisting us in this process on helping out our fellow Filipinos back home. But before I let you go, always remember the word fast, F-A-S-T, F-A-S-T, fast. Take action fast, right? Letter F, find people that will bring out the best in you, because you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with. So today I hang out with attorney Nick. I feel like it's hard to be a lawyer. I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to be a regular physical therapist, right? So find people that will bring out the best. Next letter A, take action. All this stuff that we're doing is not going to do me good. It's not even going to do attorney Nick good if you don't take action. Take action. Go to their website. Reach out to them. Hey, attorney Nick, this is my case. This is my situation. How can you help me? Take action, okay? Next letter is letter S, shoot for the moon. Why? If you keep shooting for the moon, you're going to be landing with the stars. Guess what? Tonight, I landed with the stars with attorney Nick. And of course, another lesson on that, you're going to fail, right? If you keep shooting for the moon, you're going to miss it. You're going to fail. I've been rejected several times. I've been denied a visa several times, even applying for a green card because I didn't have the doctorate degree, and even for my tourist visa back home, and then get one. It was so hard. I probably got denied, I think 2 or 3 times. I can't even remember, can't even count. I failed NPTE, but I kept on going. The goal here is to keep going. Don't stop. All right. You're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes along the way, but learn from it. Learn how to adjust your sail. When you're riding the boat or whatever you call that, or sailing the boat, learn how to adjust the sail and go for it. Okay. Next letter T is, or the last letter is letter T, is teach it. Why? Because when you hear it, you forget, you see it, you remember. But when you're actually teaching it, you're actually understanding it more. And that's what attorney Nick is doing. He's teaching us how to understand this process. And the more you understand it, the more you're teaching it, the more you're learning, the more you're going to understand it. Oh, it's not that bad. It is hard, but along the way, you'll learn it. All right. Again, thank you very much, attorney Nick. Appreciate you. Be awesome. Be great. Be excellent. And we'll see you again in the next episode of our, not the Jerry Hab show, but the Alternative Career Show. I'll see you around. Thank you. Good night, attorney Nick.
HelloNote is a truly therapist-friendly practice management solution with integrated EMR that will enhance workflow, efficiency, and patient care. HelloNote reduces error and allows you to spend more time with your patients. It comes integrated with billing. Claims are generated once a note is completed. You can bill with one click and a patient portal, which streamlines the patient intake process. Beautifully engineered and cloud-based for easy accessibility, the software works on all platforms. You can access patient records from anywhere. We also offer 24/7 support. HelloNote is